Over the last few weeks here on the Just Create SMP, I have been sort of working on a mega workshop. And the crazy part is the workshop part is just simply one part of it. It first started off by allowing me to just simply dye things. And so I can press a button and that magically selects one of our frogs to be active at any given time, allowing me to put items in a container and then it get dyed and then turn out over onto another container. But after setting that up, I needed more. And so I added a stairway that takes you up to another platform. And on this platform, well, I added some bulk processing operations. And so now I can smelt, haunt, wash, even end items, thousands of items at a time, and it gets sent back when I need them. But today I want to step things up a little bit. And up above these, I want even more processing modules for this workshop. I want this to be the ultimate workshop on the server, allowing you to bulk process anything that you want and it go into mega bulk processing modules. And all of these modules, by the way, I am sharing with you over on my Discord, so definitely be sure to check out that schematics channel. Today, one of my focuses is going to be on getting crushing wheels up and running and making a bulk crushing module, making a bulk pressing module, making a bulk sawing module, and even a bulk spouting module. And if you have any other clever sort of modules that we should use in our bulk factory, be sure to, of course, let me know down in the comments below. This factory is essentially for those times when you go, man, I really need a lot of stripped logs, or man, I really need a bunch of gravel real quick, or man, I just need a lot of sand or a lot of glass real quick. And it's something that the mall just doesn't keep a lot of in stock. I push a button and bam, this can then make it. And make it fast. Today, I also plan on getting an elevator into the elevator shaft, and something I do want to mention is all the way up top here, I added in another floor. This, I don't know exactly what I'm going to use for just yet, but it is going to be another floor, and we will have an elevator that brings us up to this level. Also today, I plan on getting the floor in down here, and yes, this isn't the actual floor. The floor is going to, well, go up above this level. Which does mean that all of my current supports that are in here, well, these do need to be raised up one more. And, that's much better. Now back to actually making some of these modules. For example, I do have this space right here where I could put a module, and I do have this space over here that I think I want to use for something else, but I think the ultimate plan should be to extend module space up top. And I know I'm using the word module a lot, but if you do build in a modular style, it will make life so much easier on you when you start to get into automation mods. And this really goes for any automation mod. Essentially, you want an in, and then you also want an output. And so long as you have an input and an output, you can use all kinds of different methods for getting items into those input and outputs. Essentially, with this setup, I have basically taken all of the modules inputs and outputs, and I've relocated them to here as an input and here as an output. And I'm using this redstone logic to be able to select specific outputs to allow all of these to be named the exact same, making this really, really easy to configure and making my redstone frogs, or I should say my packager frogs, redstone controlled. And I know this concept may be hard to really understand because a lot of times you just have a barrel or an inventory, you put the item in, and then you just expect the items to come out once it's done. But I really wanted this setup to be much bigger than that. I wanted to see how possible it was to set up something like this on a grand scale. So if we're going to have grand, we are going to need more space, and that's where I am building out industrial catwalks. However, I do want to use these metal girders, at least on these starting points, like right here. I think it would be a good idea to potentially have something that leads all the way up, and then we have this outer wall. However, I do need to hold shift when placing this, so we place these girders on the edge like so. This is going to look really good, and we can even include these maybe up here. Maybe not, actually. I just want to carry this along the wall, and this is something that I also did up top here. You can see I did line this with these girders. I think they look really good. I have plenty of room for adding even more modules to the system. Now our big focus is how are we going to get packages up here? I'm thinking if we can, a little bit of chain finagling may be possible if I could potentially get it to reach up here, but I don't think that it is going to be possible to get this particular chain to go here. It is just too steep. But you know what? If we do bring it down one here, I can get the chain to actually connect. So now we just have to essentially align this to be able to get a starting point. But I do want these to be the same height, so going about 7 blocks up, but this is also going to lead to that same problem. That is far too steep. A way I can figure this out, though, is by placing a bunch of these in and seeing at till what point do these actually connect. So it looks like I can definitely go here. Can I go into the space in between that? And let's find out. No. So right about here is about as close as I can get. This actually being even with this, allowing me to maybe have these on the ceiling. For example, I could have a girder that runs down here, and now my chain connection would go from this, if I have that selected, all the way up to here. And that's not half bad. For this, however, we will have to figure out our walkway situation. Or there's another solution. I think I have it. Okay, so this is going to go down into the center, and then we'll have another chain that is going to lead this up, and it does seem kind of weird, but this is mostly for aesthetic purposes. And then this will be our bridge up through all of the main sections. It may seem wonky, but it allows us to have our platforms a lot cleaner looking. All of this leaves us with a really pretty chain line. So this is going to run all through the top, and we're going to run this all the way over to here. For example, this one is going to run into this one, and so on and so forth. With the chains in, I've also managed to get the redstone all in place here, and I'm using the redstone links down at the end. These are going to be the send signals, and you can see I have each individual processing identifier set up on the redstone. So for example, if I now have white selected, if I go up here and I select this one, it should trigger this to turn off, and now this is going to be the only active one. Oh yeah, I've got to get this redstone set up. And by this, I mean the thing that actually tells these lamps to stay on. I couldn't imagine doing this without having the clipboard to be able to copy these settings and paste them over. This has been an absolute game changer since I figured this out. Look at that. Now, also to clean things up and to make all of the button selectors a little bit easier to identify the fact that they are actual buttons, I did replace them all with brass. So I do have copycat buttons here with a brass block inside. Kind of expensive, I know. But out of all the ways you could use brass blocks, I think this is probably one of the best ways. Because in my opinion, this is one ugly block. Before I get to placing in some more modules and we actually get the module design started, I probably should light this area up a little bit more. And somebody is actually selling some of the best lights on the server. And that someone, well, it's Silent Whisper. And those best lights are in here somewhere. Yes, right back here. Yes, 32 for a diamond. I mean, that's basically a steal. I'm going to get a couple of stacks of them. I think that is going to be perfect. And I think we trade with this guy, right? And then we wait. Yep, there's a package coming. It is coming around, and yes, that should be it. I don't know why this frog didn't actually make any sound. That was kind of interesting, but perfect. So now we have some frog lights. Sorry, invisible lights. Get it? It was a light picked up by a frog light. Never mind. Back at the base, just look at that. So much nicer. And I can light all of these areas up, and you can't even tell there's anything there. You know what? If I really wanted to, I could probably place it on the bottom here, and I bet that even lights the top, doesn't it? Oh, it does. All right, so now with the lights in, it's time for the fun part. Actually building individual modules and getting all of this auto processing in for this mega workshop. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm quite excited about this. And like, I'm not even like mass automating anything. I'm just setting up an array, something that I can click, I can do, and I can go, okay, I want a bunch of things pressed. I want a bunch of things sawed, and it's just going to do it. Now, first module I do want to set up is going to actually be the spouting one. The reason this would be nice is because it would allow me to bulk make all of the different weathered versions of copper. Now, to do this, I need to make sure I give myself enough space so that way I can create create a cart assembler setup so that way we can add some redstone functionality to our frog ports. Which means that just like this, right about up here is where a storage needs to go. With this in mind, I kind of have an idea. I think I'm going to utilize all of these slots so we can have about 6 of them, I think, running in this space. And so I can place down some shafts here, and there's a cool way that I can actually distribute items across all of these belts. That cool way is going to involve using brass tunnels. So we place brass tunnels at the start of our belt line and making sure this leads out forward. And if we actually funnel items into here via something like a smart chute, for example, well, something special happens. Items that go through this chute actually enter in through all of these tunnels, and it will actually evenly distribute them all out onto the belt, depending on your distribution method, of course. For example, split is probably going to be the one that we want to choose, but there is a couple of other options like round robin, which will evenly distribute them in full throughout all of the belts. The main one I really want is split, so that way we split all of the stacks that come in evenly by 6, or at least the best that it can. Now, another cool part about this being 6 blocks long is that it fits perfectly with a double wide vault. So yes, we'll take a double wide vault. This actually extends exactly 6 blocks. For example, if you try to extend it any longer than 6, well, it starts a new vault. And this surprisingly also fits in the front, meaning it's going to fit this whole section just perfect because nothing extends further than this. This is already turning out to be a quite beautiful module. Only real thing left to do is, well, to get water flowing in here. So we can just route this. You can pull up the scroll wheel. There we go. That is now routing up. And I'm going to go ahead and tap in some cogwheels, which I should have routed here. Perfect. And that should start filling that up with unlimited water. Just like all of my other modules in this area, this is being controlled by redstone. So this frog is going to be turned on and off by our clicking button system. So I'm going to place a cart in here, and then we're going to make sure to give this a redstone signal. There we go, to cart contraption, which it is linked and it is labeled dying frogs, just like all of the other frogs that we currently have on this network. And then I have my export frog right here. Then finally, what I want to do is I want to grab my redstone control, which is going to be this one right here for this particular setup. And we just need to make sure this has the invert here. So it just needs to have a NOT gate. Put this in receive mode, and then we'll paste that in. So now when that button is clicked, this frog will be the only frog active on the network. So let's just test this out. That is clicked in, and you can see this frog is happy and ready to go. So I guess now there's nothing to it but to test it. So we're going to switch this over to a chest, and then I want to convert these copper shingles one time. And I do have this currently selected, which should make its way over here. And that should allow it to evenly distribute. You can see all of them evenly distributed out. And this is just going to start feeding this back. And because we're only using one frog, we should never have to worry about it just overdoing things. And you can see this is already done. But this would be a bit faster, by the way, if we were, for example, sending like mass packages into it. But that was already a stack of conversions done incredibly quickly, as this process does take quite a bit of time. For example, if I was to use the one at the spawn, as that is essentially taking 1 second per item. So 64 items, I mean, that's 64 seconds. That's over a minute per stack. Whereas this can basically produce that 6 times faster. For something I don't use all that often, but do like to use, this is going to be really helpful. Now, automatically honeycombing these things, well, that's something that I'll worry about later for another module down the road. Now that we roughly have an understanding of how these modules are supposed to work, I think we should speed things up and, well, get these other modules placed in. And it now feels good to have these mega modules in place. So, of course, we have our bulk pressing module, which is going to do a bunch of pressing. This is very simple. We are doing the same distribution method where we send it into brass tunnels, goes through the belt line, enters into a 6 long vault, and voila, like this is perfect. But distributing onto sols gets a little bit more complicated. So for this, these are all set to only send one at a time. So I do have one at a time that gets sent out, and then what pulls it onto a drain is simply a funnel that pulls the item out of the smart chute. Very nice and compact way of doing this, right onto a sol, which then gets pulled right off the sol directly into an item vault, which will get sent back. Then finally, we have our crushing wheels. This one being the tallest of this setup, but I think the cool way that I managed to get these wheels spinning kind of works out by having some encased chain drives that are running down the center, and then we have these turned to their side so that way we can change the direction to make them face into each other, which is so convenient. And so we now also have a bulk crusher, which is just amazing. And all of this inside of this factory we can access by selecting. For example, I want to bulk press a bunch of things. What things? Well, how about we press a bunch of these industrial iron ingots? These do have a pressing recipe to be able to turn into industrial iron sheets, which we can then use for things like industrial cages and many other different industrial related blocks. And so if I place these in here, this then gets pulled out and should get sent to the mass pressing system. And look at that go. That is making so many at a time. It should do 8 ingots at a time, which is very fast for pressing, by the way. Just allowing me to make all of these cool decorative items much faster. Such a short period of time, 500 of these sheets processed up like it was nothing. Now I needed to step outside for a minute because I need to talk about what we're going to be working on next. Getting in the floors, which is going to go on the bottom layer of the building. I'm still not quite sure what I'm going to put down here. I know I need to get an automatic die factory so I can get a reprinting area, but I almost want to put the reprinting area up in the very top because that's more of a luxury thing. I think having all of these rare packages you can just walk up and repackage things in, that feels like a luxury to me. And the upper part of the building is definitely screaming luxury. So maybe what I can do is I can make that bottom area my new mega storage area. Because right now I am starting to have issues with my regular storage. I mean, I'm definitely running out. And while it is a good way to do the storage, it's not exactly the best way. And I think more research needs to be done in ways that I could potentially handle the storage solutions. I've got a pretty creative way, however, it is kind of iffy if the threshold switches actually function. So if you have any suggestions on ways that we can handle a potentially larger storage system, please let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to have to come up with a new creative plan on my very own, which I mean, I definitely don't have a problem doing. Now, anyways, back to the floor that I'm going to be working on. This floor down here is going to be for that storage area, and I don't want it to be just regular andesite, gravel, and cobblestone, much like our ground floor area here. So this is going to be raised up. This is also going to lead us into the elevator shaft, which we're going to be working on here in a second. But what I want to do is I want to distinguish this floor from all of the others, and so I kind of have built a little bit of a block palette for this. Hear me out. It's going to contain some tuff, of course, but also it's going to contain some terracotta. And it's also going to contain some moss, but not regular moss. And this is where we get to actually use and play with our factory that we just set up. For example, I want to go all the way up here because I am going to want to bulk up some of this moss, and I want to haunt it. So I'll make sure haunting is selected because I have jetpacks. I can just hop on down, make sure I have my chest set up, and I am just simply going to send this into our bulk haunter, which is then going to run over here. And by the way, once this chest is emptied, yeah, I should be able to, well, I guess not emptied. I should be able to reselect as soon as everything has gone in, technically. That is one of the big limitations, and I even seen you guys' concerns about that in the comments. You were like, Chosen, well, how do you do multiple things at once? Well, most of the time, I'm not really concerned about doing multiple things at once. I just want to do a mass bulk of items, much like this. And once all of the items are in, I see no more frogs on the chain line, I can definitely switch anything I want to any other button. That's because the return just never changes. And speaking of that, we do need to bulk up some clay. So I am going to switch this over into the bulk smelting and blasting. And yeah, I'm just going to send over all of this clay to then be bulk smelted because I want to use not normal terracotta, but a special dyed version of it. Just look at our items returning here. I have all of that pale moss, which is going to blend perfectly with the tuff, and now I'm receiving that terracotta. And with the terracotta, I want to turn this into cyan terracotta. So another button switch done, and this is going to get led over here into our cyan dyer. This is exactly what I intended this workshop to be for, is doing stuff like this. This makes building so much easier, as I have all of my modules just in one location. Is it the best way to do it? Definitely not. We could have definitely labeled our individual packages. We could have placed items into a container that had a package destination that was assignable. All of that is doable. However, in this particular situation, I just wanted to be able to push a button. And that's what I find fun about Create and many other mods. You don't have to do everything the perfect, most optimized way, but doing it a way that you find enjoyable is going to be where you find the most fun. And would you look at there, all of that cyan terracotta, which honestly doesn't look cyan to me at all. It definitely looks gray and fits very well with all of these tuff textures. Now the game plan is to use some tuff and to also use tuff around the outer edge. And so I want to line this with a mixture of those blocks. With that in, this is where I want to start blending in some of that cyan terracotta, but also a little bit of pale moss around some of these edges. And you can see how that is going to blend in. And then in the center, the main part of the floor, I mean, that's going to be this cyan terracotta. That's going to look really nice. And then I think I'm going to include some strip sections of pale moss. It's going to kind of look like it trails into the area. After all of that, I think that this doesn't look half bad for a floor design. There's still a long ways to go, but ultimately I would love to have this as my main storage hub. I feel like having the storage right next to the processing unit makes so much sense to me. Before we start working on anything crazy like a storage system, well, I think what we should do is get this elevator in. Now I have my elevator pulley in and I have it currently set to 128 RPM, but we may have to change that depending on the scale of this building. We're really going to have to find out what feels right. That's going to be something that we have to work on later. For now though, I am laying down some iron trapdoors on the bottom, and I actually want this to have a pretty solid floor. And I think I'm going to use the industrial iron plating for this, which is going to line the floor just like so. Now, this elevator is going to take heavy inspiration off of real life elevators, specifically the like bird cage sort of pulley system elevators. But also in the corner, I want these hydraulic sort of cylinder looking things, but to pull this off, we have to place the hydraulics or the cylinders in after it is fully contraptioned. But this is where things are going to be really neat. Here in the corner, this is actually where that hydraulic system is going to go. So for now, I'm going to place in this first bottom rail. This is essentially going to contain a sort of little walkway. Like this isn't actually where the main system is going to be. We're actually going to be housed in this center 3x3. So I'm going to use some iron bars here and lay this all in. Then on the top of this railing, some copycat slices with some metal girders in here, by the way, that are tilted to a certain size. The reason all of this is going to work is because this center section right here, we're going to have quite a bit of room in here. That's because this is actually on the outside of the block, meaning that I can actually lay in another copycat panel just like this, and we can set the direction, and then we still have a full 3x3 worth of space in here. Now I am going to need some more stripped logs, so perfect time to use the bulk saw, which of course I place that into here, and that should start to strip those logs quite quickly. This frog is all ready to go. And just look at that. This is why I made this system. That stripped log then went into here, and I want to start making this look kind of like just an iron cage. And now, I don't know about you, but I never am satisfied with while I'm building. I'm actively just like trying to figure out, what could I do different? So I made some fluid pipes, I haven't actually used these yet, but I think these actually might play a really important role in giving that effect like this is actually hooked to the whole setup. So I'm now adding these supports in. I also use some copycat panels to run up the top. I'm thinking though about making this stairs active on the front also, just because this whole section just looks a little bit odd. I still don't know. I'm using windows here. I'm still figuring this all out. This is looking good so far. Now, to be able to pull off that effect as if this is essentially grabbing onto a pipe that is going to be placed in afterwards, what I want to do is place these on these copycat fluid pipes. And this should give some sort of look as if this thing is connected. I think I figured this out entirely. So I've added some shafts. You won't be able to see these because these will actually be enclosed in another shape. But if I connect these out to the side, you start to see how this is going to sort of look. Imagine that there is a girder running down the center and these are poking out of the sides, basically looking like it is floating up those girders. Okay, with the fundamentals of the elevator in, we got to get the redstone contacts in here, and then we're very close to getting this assembled. Now, I think this is nearly it. The only thing left to do is I do want to add a wheel onto the side of this. This is for aesthetic purposes on here, and then I think that is it. Maybe another one on the other side. Yes, that's going to be perfect. And I did a little bit of interior decorating. Of course, got to scare anybody that pops into here because there is a trapdoor underneath. I also added a bench, which also has a brass funnel on it. A little bit of decorative potted plant, which will definitely calm the nerves as you go up and down the elevator. And I do have a light and a regular bell. So that way when you go up, the bell will go ting. Now I do need to glue the entire thing together. The cool part about this whole thing is most of this will be just simply glued all together. So I'm going to glue the whole central piece, get all of that glued together. This is just not the main part of it though. Like I said, what's really going to give that effect is once we get this whole thing turned into a contraption. I'm kind of nervous. I think everything is glued together, but you never really know. You could always miss a singular part. But as soon as I click this, that should form it a contraption, in which it now is. Everything I think is good to go. The only way to tell is to go up to the next floor and hope that everything stayed. It's so cool to see all of these other things staying. And to me, it looks like everything got moved. Yes, look at that. I can actually see down here of everything carried. You could say I'm getting pretty good at this. Now, the real thing that's going to make all of this pop. Yes, getting ourselves a control area, and I think I'm going to place this down here, and I want chutes and girders. So we're going to have girders that literally go all the way up, and it's going to go straight through, and this is the effect that I was talking about. So this is going to go straight through this contraption, and it looks like this is being held on to. And this really does just sell that whole effect, and this is exactly what I was striving to do. It is such a good feeling when something that you're working towards and you imagine in your brain just actually functions. The elevator, really the only thing left to do is to get the call button in. And so yes, we'll be using redstone links for this. Very, very simple. I'm just going to use a random identifier. For example, this is just going to be a stick, and then I'll just place that on this elevator contact. Just be sure to copy the settings with a clipboard to make this really easy, and then to punch to paste. Now, no matter what floor I'm on, whether I fly or not, I can simply hit a single button and I can watch this whole elevator come down. And this has got to be one of the coolest elevators I have built thus far. I didn't really want it to be super big on the interior because I always find elevators feel cramped in real life. And so that feeling of being cramped is almost part of the thrill of getting inside of an elevator. Would love to hear your thoughts. What's your thoughts on this elevator? Do you like the design? Are you going to take a copy with this design? I would love to hear from you down in the comments section below. And well, today we got a ton of stuff done. Not only did I get myself an elevator, which is just so cool, tutorial, I managed to add several new processing modules to our mega workshop. And I also managed to get a floor done. Yeah, even though this may have been the most boring part. But all of this space is going to be used for a future storage expansion, and I really hope you're excited for that, because that's going to be a really fun thing to build and to concept and design. But if that is something that you're interested in and you're looking forward to more episodes just like this one, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. Now, without further ado, it's time for me to say thanks to the amazing supporter that made today's episode possible. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Frozen, the Glacial World Tree. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting my content in one of the best ways possible. I look forward to developing this entire build and future builds, and if you guys are looking forward to that, I'll see you in the next one, and as always, thanks for watching.